So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is views. So what are views in SQL? Views are some virtual table which we create by using one or more tables. It's just like the same table that is available in the database. Now, for example, for this human resource database, we have a view over here, and we can see that this particular human resource database has tables like calendar, employees, employee position, history. Now, what if I want to create a virtual table using the existing table which is available in the database, and that particular table will behave the same way that the other tables are there. We can perform all the SQL operations on that particular table, and we can also write the same queries to extract the data from those tables. Now, what are views? Views are just nothing but a virtual table which are created by using one or more tables. We can use the columns for one or more tables to create views. Now, if you come down over here under the, if you see this human resource database, there's a folder over here which is aligned as views. So this is the place where we create those virtual tables by using the existing table, and those existing tables are already available in the database of human resource. Now over here, we can either create a view from a single table, or we can create a view from a multiple tables also. Now when I talk about views, there are two approaches that I follow for view. First, we use the available options in the SQL Server Management Studio to create a table in views, or we create by writing queries. Now the question is why we want to use views in SQL. Now view sometimes allows you to create a table with a specific segment of the data. Now let me give you an example. So suppose if there is a let me give you an example of a coffee shop. Suppose we have a coffee shop. There's a coffee shop which is running. The owner of the coffee shop suddenly wants to know the trend of sales for a particular day. So what he can do, he can create a separate view, a virtual table, which will only contains the columns, the data for that particular day. And that particular owner can analyze those data for that specific day by creating a virtual table. Now, what are the advantages of virtual table? Obviously, if you create a separate virtual table for specific that particular day, then the queries will run faster because we'll not be considering the past records for the table. So it's a very fast experience while working with a SQL data, or working with the SQL tables. Now the question is how we can create views. As I said, there are two approaches for creating views. First, we use the options available in the SQL Server Management Studio, and the second, we'll write a query for creating that. To create a view, it's very simple. Right click on the view, and there's an option over here, it's folder, and you get a new view option. And the moment you click on new view, you can see there are tables available over, and these tables are nothing but the tables which are already available in the database. These are the tables which you can see over here. So if you click on new view, you can see these are the tables which you can see over here. So I click on new view and I can see the tables over here. Now what I can do, I can select the tables from which I want to create a view. Suppose let me select the employee, add the employee table. Let me select the gender, and I can add the gender table. Now you can close this particular pop-up window. You can arrange the tables over here. Now this console is the console where you work with the view tables. So I'm creating a view using the employee and the gender table. I am showing you the first approach where I'm going to create the views using the available options in SQL Server Management Studio. Now that I have brought the two tables over here, let me arrange this table properly so that it can be properly viewed. Now let us see what kind of operations we can perform. In order to create a view, you can select the required columns from the tables, and you can see that I'm not writing a single query in SQL, but you can see the queries are already getting created the moment I'm selecting the column. And this particular part section, which is called a table pane, you can say, is getting updated with the column name, the table name. And now if I select another column, you can see the query is getting generated automatically in the background. So I can select the first name, I can select the gender. So I have selected 4 columns, and the select statement has automatically created the queries over here, where I can see the table name from which it has been selected, and by default there is a join that has been taken place between the gender and the employee, which we need to establish. We have not yet established the join. As of now, I have selected the four tables. Now, once I select these four columns from the table, we can further add more information. Now, suppose I want to add a filter on the gender column. So I can come to this filter column and I can add a filter like male. You can see the where clause has been automatically updated, where the employee gender is equal to male, or also we can apply a logical filter also, where I can use a or condition to select the female gender also. Now you can see the where clause is automatically written. I am not writing a single line of query over here. I can also sort the columns. If I want to sort the SID employee column, I can come to this sort type column and I can select the option from the drop down. Now this sort order is the order in which the sorting is done. So I am this is number one. Now if I sort the employee number column, it will become under the second sort order 2. All the options that we can perform over here in terms of sorting is getting a number over here. So sort order is 1, sort order is 2. Now suppose, so you have written, you can see over here that for every step that I have performed in the table pane, query is getting automatically generated as and when I select the options. Now what if I want to perform a join between the gender and the employee table? For that I need to select this particular gender column, I have to drag and I have to release my mouse over here. And you can see by default there is an inner join that has been established between the employee and the gender table. I can also manipulate, I can also edit the join type. If I click over here, right click on this particular option over here, I can see the left and right join are also available over here. If I select all the rows from the employee table, that means there will be a left join. You can see this is a left outer join that has been established. Now again, if I come over here, right click on this and I select all the rows from the gender table, then there will be a full join. If I again right click over here and if I remove the option right and full outer join, the default join will again come to inner join, which is done on the basis of the gender column. So we are using the available option, the point and click options from this particular pen, this particular view console, to create a table, which is a virtual table, which I'm creating from the existing table from my database. Now, what if I want to execute this query? What if I want to verify this, whether I have performed a correct query or not, whether I have selected the correct values or not? For that, I have to come to this particular query pen. This is called a query pen over here. You have to come over here, you have to do a right click and you will find two options over here, execute and verify. If I click on verify the SQL syntax, I'll get a verification message over here showing the SQL syntax has been verified against the data source. Now if I want to execute it, I will again to right click on this particular query pen and I need to click on execute SQL query. And you can see in the execution pane over here, the last, all the rows of the table are getting executed in terms of the SID employee, the employee number, first name, gender, the 4 rows that I have selected. I can also stop retrieving the data process and we can have it. So we can see that we have executed this particular query over here and we can see that the query has been successfully executed. That we have executed this particular query over here, it's time to save this query. You can also have an option to save this query. Now for saving this query, what you have to do, this particular part of the query which is written over here is actually creating the structure of the table. But this particular part, this order by part, is not a part of this particular query as we are using this particular command just to sort the data. So you have to remove this extra what you can say operations that we have performed in terms of sorting a column in order to save this query. Now this is a rule that we need to follow while saving a query which we have used for creating a view or a virtual table. So as this order by is not a part of the standard command which we have only used for sorting the data of the table, we have to remove this particular sort option before we save this. Because if we try to save the query along with this order by option, then the system will throw an error. And what kind of error? Let me show you that. If I select this particular query and click on save all, I can name this particular view as view table or first view, you can give it as first. And if I click OK, the system will throw an error because order by clause is only used to determine the row it's a sorting function that I'm using over here. So that is not part of creating the data table structure. In that case, we have to remove this particular order by option over here. You can select and you can remove it. And now if I want to try to save it and I give it a name as first view, you can see I am able to save this view over here. And now if I refresh this view folder, I can see the first view. And now if I write a query over here like select star from first view, okay, so we have created this view over here, which we saved last time. Now what happened, we can use this particular view as a normal table. For that, what I can do, I can click on new query. We need to make sure that we're using the human resource database over here. Now what if I write a simple statement over here like select star from first view that we have created. And now if I press execute this query, you can see this table is getting executed where I have selected 4 tables from the employee table, along with the where clause which we have used to extract the gender male or female. Now this is one approach of creating a view. Another approach is writing a query. Now we have the first approach that we have done, we have done right click and selected the new view option. What if I want to create a view by writing a query? I'll click on new query and I'll write as a simple query as create view. Let me name this as second view. Now I have created the view name. Now for the content of this particular view, I can copy this particular piece of code. Now this particular piece of code is nothing new to you. Yesterday when I was discussing the self join, if you remember, I have written this particular query where I use the employee manager tree table with 2 different alias names and I have extracted the manager name and the employee name along with the ID. So I'm using that particular same query for creating a new view which name is SView. Now this time I'm writing a query to create a view. And now if I select this particular query and I execute it, you can see the command has been successfully executed. And now if I refresh the view folder over here, you can see the new view that I've created using the query. And now I can again write a simple query, or let me write this particular query over here only. Select star, the view name will be, and now if I execute it, you can see I can get the same data which has been extracted as a result of this particular self join that I have created. So I have used that particular query as a, what you can say, to define the structure of the new view that I created. And this time the new table that I have created under the view folder, the virtual table that is created is SView, where I have used the columns from a single table, that is employee manager tree. So these are the 2 approaches by which we can create views in SQL, which are a set of virtual tables which we create either from a single table or by using multiple tables. The next example is an interesting example where I'll be using the into clause to create a new table by selecting the existing columns from the available tables in the database. Now for example, let me describe a scenario for this. Now if I open this table folder, there are a lot of tables over here like departments, employee location, employee movement history, employee position history. Now what if I want to select some columns from the employee and the gender table, I perform certain join, I perform certain filter, done certain kind of sortings, and all these operations that I have performed using the employee and the gender table, with these operations, I want to save the output of this particular query as a new table in my database. I repeat, the requirement is that I want to perform certain operations on the table of employee and gender, and I want to save the output of that particular operation as a new table in my database. And the database over here is human resource. So how can I do these kind of operations where I can save the output as a new table in my data? Let us see that. I'll take a new query for this. And what I can do first, let me perform the operation that I want to do. So I want to select the employee number, the birth date, the name of the employees, the hire date, and the gender name from the respective tables like employee and gender. I am more focused on getting the details of the male employees, or it can be a female employee specifically. And I also wanted to sort the birth date column, which will be a part of the data extraction process from these two tables using a inner join. So first let me write the query, and then I will create a table out of this particular query. So I write select from, I write the table name over here as employee, and I will also include one more table with the help of inner join, that is gender, which I will name as gen, and I will perform a inner join on the basis of the gender column which is available in both the columns. I will write emp.gender equal to gen dot, and I'm specific about a clause where I want to only get the data where the gender is, or it can be female, and also I want to perform a sort operation on the birth date column of the employee table. Now that I have performed the join operation and I have defined the filter also with the where clause, I have defined the condition of the by the where clause, and also I have performed the sort operation. It's time to define the columns which I want to select. So I want to go for the employee column, employee number column, the birth date. Also let me go for the name of the employee. Let me go select the hire date also, and the gender name from both the tables. So I have selected the column, I have defined the join operation on the basis of the matching criteria using the gender column in both the tables. I have also applied the filters in terms of a specific condition, and also I have sorted. Now if I execute this query, I will get the required columns from both the tables. I have got the female condition over here from the gender table, and I have also got all the employee numbers, and also I have sorted the birth date column over here. So whatever this is a very simple join operation that I have performed, which I have already discussed earlier. The purpose of this example is to show you what if I want to create a new table that will contain this particular output. For that, what do you have to do? I want to use a keyword over here, or a function you can say, or a command you can say, which is into, which will create the new table. And let me name the new table as emp female in my database, or we can say emp female birthdays to be more precise. So what will this into command do? It will create a new table in your database which will contain this particular output. Now if I select this particular command, this query, and if I execute it, you can see 12,000 or 1,20,000 rows has been affected. Now if I go to this table folder, and if I do a right click and refresh it, you will be able to find a new table over here with the name of emp female birthdays, which we have just created by using this into command. What it has done nothing. First it has selected all the columns in terms of the conditions and the filters, and then with this help of this particular command, it has created a new table in my data. And now if I use the select star from command emp female birthday, and if I execute this command, you can see I have got the same set of information which you have got by using this command query. So yesterday I remember someone was asking me whether we can save it as a part of a table or a new table. So this is how we can do that. Now, the next example is going to be a very complicated and a very big example where I'm going to discuss about using the insert option, some advanced level implementation of the insert command that we have in SQL. Now insert, as you all know, is a very common command. I can easily show you that insert into table name values and that's all. But that will not serve the purpose over here. Whenever we are discussing an insert, there should be a proper scenario where we will use the insert option to update a record in a table in such a way that we do in our day-to-day work or where we interact with the SQL server. Now, for this example, I want to discuss about a scenario where an employee who has left the company after working for a couple of years and again came back after a few years, or again came back after a certain interval and wanted to join back the company. And there can be various reasons for that. An employee, they can come back to the company. There can be various obvious reasons for that. Now, how will the HR people or the database person will manage this kind of queries? Because the employee was already a part of the system. He left, the particular employee left that particular system, and after a specific interval, he came back. The employee came back, and the employee wanted to again work in this particular organization. Now the question is, after a lot of discussion, it has been decided that that particular employee ID will be activated into the database, and this is a very common practice in many organizations where the employee leave and again they try to come back after some time. So what happens? The employee ID becomes deactivated, and again when the employee comes back, the ID of the employee needs to be activated. Now the conditions can be many. There are many conditions in terms of activating an employee ID. The conditions may be whether the employee wants to join with a new salary slab or the employee have accepted the last salary slab. There are various conditions that can be applied. Now over here, this particular employee has left the organization and has come back and has decided to join the organization of the same employee ID and with the last withdrawal salary that the company has offered the employee. Now when the HR head decided to onboard this particular employee, there are few constraints, there are few challenges that came while onboarding this. The first is that we need to check whether this particular employee ID was there in our system or not. Now, in this particular human resource database, there are two sets of information in terms of employee. First set of information is the employee table, and the second set of information is the current personal table. Now this employee table is a master table where all the employee, whether it's a current or whether it's an ex-employee, data is available. But this particular current personal table only consists of those data of employee who are currently active in the organization. Now what we can do? This particular employee number is, what I am going to work is 100. We have to check the presence of this particular ID in two tables before we proceed to bring back this employee into the system. The first thing that we have to check is whether this particular ID is available in the employee table or not. Now if I write this particular query, this is a very simple query where I am searching a particular ID in the table, the master employee table. Now if I execute it, I can see this particular employee was a part of the organization. But the moment I check it to the current personal table, I can see there is no such ID. That means this employee was there in the system but presently not active. Now the requirement is that as I have hired the employee back, I have to update the current personal table with this particular ID, which is not there at present. Now this is the scenario. Now it's not an easy thing because if you go and check the current personal table now, select, or what you can do, you can select a part of this particular query. When I execute it, this current personal table contains information in terms of SID employees, employee number, current salary, current location, department, SID location, and SID position. Now this looks quite simple, right? But no, these columns are actually also available in the master tables for each of the employee. For example, this particular ID is also available in the employee table. This particular 100 ID should also be available in the employee location table. This particular ID should also available in the employee movement. This particular ID should also be available in the employee position history table and also into the salary of the salary table, salary history table. So all these columns are related to the salary history, geography, employee. So I need to check all the tables over here whether this particular ID is available or not. So I have to verify all the tables which are related to the current personal table. Like for example, current salary column is also available in the salary history table. So I have to check the salary history table also for this ID, whether this particular ID is available or not. I have to check the employee position table. So there's an employee position table over here. I have to also check the employee movement table. So there's a employee movement history table because when this particular employee was there in the system, all the tables were containing this particular ID. So I have to check whether this ID is also available on the other tables or not. And then after getting a confirmation, I have to start working on updating the current personal table with this particular ID. So let's start writing a query for that. Now what I will do, I'll come to the next line and I will start selecting all the tables where these columns are available. So first thing what I will write, I'll write select employees as, let me give it an alias name as T1. And I will select all the values from that particular table employees where the EMP number, you can see there's an EMP column over here, right? EMP number 10021. Close this execution. So I have searched for the employee number. Now second, I will search the employee number in the employee location table. So I'll copy this query and I'll write the second query. I'll write employee select EMP location and I'll name this alias as T2 from employee location table. Where EMP number should be present, whether this employee number is available or not. So I'm checking for this employee ID for all the related tables. I'm now checking the location table, the current location, this particular column. The next table that I'm going to search is the employee movement table. I'll name it as EMP movement as T3 from the employee movement history table, where I need to check whether this employee number 10021 is available or not. I'll again copy this. And the next table that I'm going to search will be the employee position as T4. I'll give it an alias name as T4. And this employee position information in terms of this particular employee is available in the employee position history table. I'll delete this particular table over here and I will write employee position history table. And the last is I want to search the salary of this particular employee in terms of the ID from the salary history table. Over here, whenever we are searching a salary, we need to keep in mind as an HR that a salary of an employee also includes a salary history of the employee also includes the appraisal that the employee has received during the tenure in the company. Whenever you're working with the salary part, you have to always consider the last 5 salary slab that the employee was offered. Now, how to do this kind of query? Simple. You copy this particular query. To search this particular employee in terms of salary, I will write the employee salary, EMP salary option over here as T5 from the current or the salary history table, where the employee number in is 10021 and the salary should be sorted in descending order for the last 5 withdrawal. So we have used a sorting option where we will take the last 5 salary slab of the employee in descending order. Now if I execute this query, you can see all the tables where this a particular employee ID is there has been extracted. So this employee ID is also available in the employee table T1. This employee ID is also available in the T2 table. So in T3 table means employee movement table is also the employee ID is available 10021. The employee ID is also available in the employee position history, and this is the last 5 withdrawal salary where the last withdrawal salary was 84,169. Now, on the basis of this salary, it was decided that we need to bring back the employee into the system. Now, one confirmation what we got from this particular query that this particular employee was an active employee where the details of the employees are all available in the respective table, which captures each and every movement of the employee in terms of the location, the movement history, the position, the salary history, and in terms of salary history, we have also got the last 5 salaries of the table with the highest salary. The last withdrawal salary for the employee was 84,169. Now, on the basis of this particular salary amount, the next step is to update the current personal table where the employee ID is not there. Now, what do you have to do? The next step? The next step is that now that I have got all the columns over here, where I can see that these columns are all available with the required data, we'll select this particular column from the respective table. Now we all know whenever we are selecting columns from the respective tables where there are multiple tables involved, we perform a join. So all the columns like employee number, SID locations, all the columns that we have searched till now, we select those columns from the respective table where the employee ID will be 10021. The first we have find the column, second we will be selecting the column. For that I'll again take a new query and let's start writing one more query. Now these queries, you can see how big these queries are. These are multiple lines of queries where we're performing join. This is what we do in a day-to-day work in Office. And then we extract the data and we prepare the reports. So this is a requirement that I'm working where I have to update a table with the missing data. So I have to search all the tables in the database. So I've got the details of the employee. Okay, fine, this employee was there in all the tables. So I don't have to update this table separately. Now that I have got the details, let's select this particular column. Why am I selecting this particular column? Because these particular columns are all available in the current personal table. So you have to select all the columns for the respective tables where the employee ID is available. So I'll take a new query and I will start writing another query where we'll be selecting the columns over here. So I'll write select from, I'll first use the employee table. I'll perform an inner join. Now this all is inner join will be done with a common criteria. And what is that criteria? The criteria will be SID employee. For all the tables that I've selected, you can see SID employee is available in all the tables, right? So this will be the common column on the basis of which we are going to establish the connection or the join operation. So now let us write the query. Let me write the query. From employee as empty, we perform an inner join on the employee location table EL on emp dot SID employee equals to EL dot SID employee. The next table that will be part of the join is employee movement history, which will be given a name as EMH, and it will perform a join on the employee table emp.sid employee equals to emh.sid employee. And again, we'll join this table with the help of an inner join with the employee position history table, which we can give a name as EPH on, and we perform the join operation again with the employee table. So we write emp.sid employee equals to EPH.sid employee. So you can see all in all the tables the SID employee column is common and the same data type. And the last table that we're going to use is the salary history table, which will be marked as SH as an alias and will be joined with the employee table on the basis of the SID column equals to SH dot SID employee. Now that we have selected all the columns, now that we have used all the table for selecting for joining purpose, it's time to define the condition. What will be the condition? Where the employee number will be 10021 and the columns which are going to select from all these tables on which you have performed join are, now we'll mention those columns. The first column will be selected from the employee table and that is SID employee. The second column that we are going to select is the employee number. The third column that you are going to select is the salary. The fourth column will be the city. The fifth column will be the department. These all columns are part of the current employee salary, the current personal table basically. So we'll select the department column from the employee movement history, that is SID department. The next column will be SID location, which is in the employee location history table. You can see how big these queries are getting slowly. The next column will be the employee position. So which will be selected from the EPH, employee position history. And now I will execute this query, the moment of truth. Let's see how we can do, whether we are able to define the things properly or not. And if I execute this query, so I have got an output over here. Now this output has a mistake. Now what is the mistake over here? We were able to successfully pull out all the required columns for the current personal table, but this particular columns is showing us multiple salary over here. But our focus was, the condition was that the employee will be taken back on the basis of the last withdrawal salary, that is 84,169. But over here, when you're selecting the column, I'm getting all the 4 salaries over here. Now how to fix this kind of error? Now this is not an error, but this is the execution is giving us a wrong output, not a specific output, because our concern was to select all the columns from the respective tables on the basis of this particular salary, right? We cannot include all the other salaries over here. To fix this particular issue, we'll use the concept of subquery. Now, as we have performed a join operation over here with the current salary history table, it is actually fetching all the data related to those salary under this employee. But we have to only focus on this particular part of the employee. So we will write a subquery where we will select the maximum salary among all these 4 salary slab that we have got as an output. Now how to fix this? We'll write a subquery in this particular query that we have written. Now what is a subquery? Subquery, as the name specifies, that query within a query. Writing a query within a query. So we have already written a query, right? Now we'll write another query within this particular query. And that particular query will take care of this maximum salary. For that, what you have to do, in place of this particular column, this current salary, we'll write a simple query over here, which will be selecting the maximum salary from the current salary column, which is available in the salary history table, where the employee ID is so simple, right? You can see where the employee ID is, or the employee number is equal to the employee number which is available in the employee table. And I want to show that particular column as current salary only. That's it. What I have done, in order to select the maximum salary from this particular column, I have written a query within the query. And now that I have specified the maximum salary over here, what I can do, I can remove this particular join over from here. And now if I execute it, and now if I execute this query, now I can see I have got the maximum salary from the all the tables that I have selected, and for current salary I have written a simple sub query within the query which will select the maximum salary from the current salary column using the current salary history table, where the employee ID should be equal to the employee ID which is available in the employee table, and that particular column will be shown as current history column. Now let's go back and let's see, because this particular employee table is a part of our whole query execution, which actually contains the data in terms of the employee number, the master table. That's why I'm referring that particular table over here. Now these are some things which you will come to know slowly and gradually over the practice. The best ways to write a query, where instead of giving the direct numbers, we can refer the master table, because the master table, it is assumed that it contains all the correct data. So that's why I'm doing. This is one of the practice that I follow. So I always keep the master table as a reference. And over here, the master table is the employee table, and the employee number is already available in that table, which we have already checked. That's why I'm referring that table over there. Now that we have selected all the columns over here, the next thing that we have to do is the most important part. Let me go back and let me show you the things we have done. First, the requirement was that this particular employee ID should be brought back to the system. Now what we did, first we checked this particular ID in the master table, it was available. Then we checked in the current personal table where it was not available. So we checked all the corresponding table from where these columns were there. We can see the output, and we can see that yes, this ID was active in the corresponding tables also, which contains the other information of the employee in terms of the location, the movement, the salary and all. Now once we have confirmed about this particular ID of other tables, what we did, we selected all the columns from those respective table using the join operation. You can see all the columns has been selected, and also we fixed the salary issue, which are showing us the last salary slabs also, but we were only focusing on the highest salary, because on the basis of that condition only the employee was decided to brought back to the system. Now that I have selected all the required column, now it's time to insert this detail into the current personal table. Now for that, what we have to do, we'll write a very simple statement over here. We'll write insert into, and what is the table name? Current personal. And what will be the columns over here? I'll write SID employee. I'll write the employee number. I will write the current salary. Current salary. I'll write the current location. Department ID. The location ID. And the position. And I'll close it. So I have insert all the values in the respective columns of the current personal table where this ID was not there. And now against this particular ID in the current personal table, all these details will be inserted that has been extracted from the other tables using the join operation. Now if I execute this particular query, you can see one row has been inserted. Now to check the effect of this particular row, we'll write select, or else I can go back to this particular query. If I execute it, you can see current personal table is now showing me that particular ID employee number, which has been brought back to the system, but still we can see that the SID location is showing us a null value, another error in the output, or you can say another gap in the output. But before I focus on solving this null issue, let's get back and see what we have done. So we have found out that one employee is coming back. That employee was there. We checked with the details of the employee. We selected all the information from the required table, and then we have inserted it into the current personal table. And what is the takeaway from this example? The takeaway is that for inserting a simple value in a employee, what are the things that you should take care of? And this is a very common real scenario that we face in a day-to-day work. Now, I'm not talking in terms of a data analysis, but the people who are into HR domain and all, who are actually actively maintaining these kind of systems in their organization, have to go through these steps, because they cannot just now entering a new employee into the system is a very easy thing. You just create an ID and you can just update the required tables. But what if when an employee comes back to the system on a specific condition? Over here, the condition is that okay, fine, I will work on my last withdrawal salary and I want to keep my old ID only. Now, this depends on the HR compliance of the year. We'll follow these steps. But still, when I run this particular step, I was able to insert this system. I was able to make that particular employee again active in my system, where the current personal table is showing that yes, now this ID is active. But still, I don't have the location details of the table, the ID, location ID for that particular employee. So this is one more issue that we need to solve now. Now, how to solve this kind of issue? Now, over here we can see that the SID location is showing us a null value. Now, how to get this particular ID for this location? How we can track this ID? Now, you can see for every location ID, I have the location name with me. You can see the location name over here, right, in the current location. So, what I have to do, I have to find the ID against this particular location. And where this location is located is updated. This location is updated in the geography table. Now, if I search the geography table, select star from geography, table geography, where the city is equals to the name I have to give. What is the name? And if I execute this query, okay, I've got the SID location over here. So for Dunker Q, the SID location is 116. So I have to update this null value with 116. Now let's start the process of updating this null value. Now how to update this particular null value? For this, I have got the reference, right? Okay, fine. This particular ID is 116, which is available in the geography table. Now we have to first get all the details in one place. How to do that? So for this, we will be using the current personal table and the geography table. So we'll write a query over here, right? Select star from, or you can just copy it, right? Star from current personal table as CP, and you can perform a join operation with the geography table on the basis of the matching criteria. Now let me check the matching criteria. Now I have this city over here in the geography table, right? And in the current personal table, I have the current location. So these two columns, the current location column from the current personal table and the city column from the geography table are of similar data type. So we'll use these two columns. So we'll use as on, I will take the city column from the geography table, and from the current personal table, I will take the current location. And let me add a condition over there, where you can take the SID employee. Let me check if it goes to the SID employee, where the SID employee is equal to 21. Now if I execute this query, I've got all the columns from both the tables. Now what I have to do, let me study this. Now what I have to do, I have to update this null SID location column by selecting the value from the SID location column from the geography table. So I have got all the columns from both the tables. Now from the current personal table, this SID location column should be updated with this particular value 116. So what we can do, we can simply use an update statement, right? So that update statement, what we will do, update the current personal table where the column ID, where you have to set the column ID SID location with the value of the column from the geography table, that is SID location. Now let me define the table from current personal table, that is CP equals inner join with the geography table as geo on the basis of the city column and on the basis of the current location column from the current position, current personal table. So over here we have used the current location, right? Yes. So current location where the SID employee is equals to 21. Now if I execute this query, so I was able to insert a row over here, and now if I come back over here, I execute this select statement, fine. So you can see that SID location this time has been updated with 116. Earlier it was a null value. So what we did, we simply updated the current personal table where the SID location column should be equal to the SID location column from the geography table, where we have performed a join operation on the basis of the city and the current location, and we have defined a condition where we have taken the SID employee as 21. You can also take the employee number also, no problem. Now you can see how we have updated this particular table. Now I have a full-fledged information in terms of the employee who had come back to the organization with a specific condition. Now this is the whole process that we do in terms of using an insert command. This is the best example that we can have for working with an insert command. Now insert I could have showed you by simply creating a table and inserting a value, but that will not serve the purpose, right? We need to have you to understand things in a way that is used in a day-to-day work. So this is one of the scenarios that is very common in the HR practices, where we maintain certain ERP or certain database in terms of the employee. Now the next example, again it's a very interesting example. Now what happened, for this particular example, I want to take a table. So for example, if I select the take one more table for this. So select star from this time let me take the employee movement history. Now there is one more scenario that we work on day-to-day work is if how to concatenate two columns from a table. This is also one of the important scenarios. Sometimes there are requirements where we have to work on concatenating two columns. You can simply update it 116, but yes, it's always you should refer the geography table over here because that is the master table which contains all the required information. For this employee movement history table, what we have done, I need an output where I want to concatenate the SID employee and the SID department table. Now I want an output with a new column which contains the concatenation of SID employee and SID department. Basically, I'm showing an example how to concatenate two columns, to add two columns, to combine two columns. For this, what I have to do, I have to do a simple change in the table design. What I can do, I can click on this design, I go over here, and I can just change a design where I can add a column. Now this is one way by which you can add a column. I have also shown you how we can add a column in our previous discussion. So let me add a column as test and let me set the data type as int over here. And what we can do, just refresh it and we can just check whether we are able to add the column or not. Yes, so we are able to add the column over here. Now that I have added a new column, what I want this particular new column to contain the concatenation of the employee ID and the department, which is at present showing null. So how to do this kind of operations is very simple. We'll use a command called cast. Now cast, what is done? It's a kind of a command which actually transforms the concatenation function in your table, which actually combines the concatenate operations in your table. Now how? Let us see with the help of a simple query. Now what I want, I'll again use an update statement for this. So I'll use the update the table name. The table name over here is employee movement table history, and I will set the test column over here equals to I'll use a command called cast, and again I'll use a cast within it where I will use the SID employee column along with the varchar over here. Add this particular column with again using this cast function with the SID department column where I have to mention the data type, and I'll update it as int value because I've defined it as an int. Now let me check if I'm able to capitalize this particular value or not. So we have affected 3 lakhs rows over here. Now if I select this employee history table again, okay, fine. So we have got a 4 new column. The test column has been updated as a result of concatenation of the employee ID and the department table with the help of this particular cast built-in function, which actually used for type conversion. So the type conversion in terms of data type was the employee table, which is in a varchar, and the department table also was having a varchar. So it converted this data type into an int, and we have concatenated these two column with a plus sign. Now this is a very simple example. However, this kind of scenarios will be very easy for you to handle where you have to combine two columns. Now you can easily use the plus sign to concatenate. But over here, we are using this particular cast function over here as an inbuilt function just to convert this varchar from both the table into int. That's it.